Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
I'll pull up my chat.
Welcome to the Freak Show. Welcome to the Freak Show.
You got to remind me to do that while we're backstage because I can do it then.
What?
Yeah, pull it
up
up.
my chat. I just always forget because I have to pull it up first so that it knows I'm looking at it. Otherwise, it won't give me notifications.
Right.
Yeah.
So welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Welcome,
Hello.
everyone.
If you are here, you see that we are talking about AHS Freak Show Season 4. We are talking secondary villains, characters, study, and connection. So we're going to go over the characters, kind of give you a brief description of who they are, what they're about, what they did. We will then tell you how they are connected to either real life people or each other or both. So if you're here, buckle in. You're in for the ride.
Welcome.
Buckle in for the ride, people.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Wish you had that carnival music.
And of course, we have Miss
I could
Debbie.
probably pull some up.
What?
Hey, y'all, I cannot see anything.
Uh-oh. Maybe you got to
Blind.
reload it, Debbie.
You're blind.
Yeah, try and reload, babe.
See if it'll work for you.
Who turned the lights out? Ma, the electricity's out.
Oh.
Wonder if he'll see this string.
Okay.
Here we go. I got you guys. I got
Oh,
you.
there
now.
she is. Okay, she's back.
All right, you
She's
guys.
fixed. Always good.
All right. Oh, there it is. I love this score. Oh, so good.
Is it too loud?
I can hear it. We'll get it up.
Actually, you guys tell us in the comments. Can you hear us well over the music?
Yeah, can you?
B will be the
Is that
first
the
one to
official
tell
score?
us.
Is that the official score?
I just typed in royalty-free creepy circus music.
Oh, there you go. Okay, it's one of the three. There you go.
Oh, Buffy's here. Hey, Buffy. Welcome, girl. Oh, she's not feeling well, I guess.
Oh, sorry.
Feel better.
Oh, hope you don't got the big bug.
I think we all can relate.
Yeah, some bullshit.
We all can relate. Yeah, but yes, feel better soon.
Yep.
So today we are going to be discussing with you guys Maggie Esmeralda, Stanley, Rita and Larry, who are Pepper's sister and brother-in-law, Vince, who is Penny's father, and Chester and Marjorie, who is real and not real. But we will go ahead and get you guys started off at the beginning with Rita and Larry's story.
Yes. So I get the pleasure of starting off with Rita and Larry. In my opinion, these two people are the worst people ever because they don't care about anything but themselves, in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. They are... Rita is Pepper's sister.
Yeah.
And Larry is Pepper's brother-in-law. And basically the reason that she ends up over there is from the death of Salty. She's totally distraught, doesn't want to perform, and Elsa and everyone else, they don't know what to do with her now. She won't leave the body. She's not eating. She's not doing anything at all. So they come to the conclusion that she needs to be with family and that they can't take care of her anymore. So Elsa ends up taking Pepper to her sister to take care of her, and her sister wants nothing to do with this because she's more concerned that her husband is not going to like it and that you know, they have a specific lifestyle, and this is just not going to work, and she wants to have a child, and all this other stuff. And basically Elsa's able to convince her that, you know, Pepper is a good person, and she can basically help around the house. And down the road, Rita ends up getting pregnant with her son, and he ends up being like not necessarily a freak child, but they never really bond with the baby. So they end up having Pepper take care of the baby, and they basically treat her like a servant. All she does is like take care of the baby. And
well, she even told her while she's like holding the bottle and the baby, trying to feed the baby, she tells her, "Get me a martini or get me another drink." And I'm like,
yeah, she could care less about anything other than all she wants is the drink.
Yeah, all she cares about is
she doesn't.
Can we hand it to Mare for that? My goodness.
She has no desire to bond with her baby. Yeah, she has no desire to bond with her baby.
Well, and just to see her from season 4 to season 5, and the amount of loyalty to someone is so different. Just amazing.
I know.
But anyway, I digress. My bad.
Because she's just a horrible person, and then when you put Larry into the mix, because I don't know which one is worse.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if Larry enabled her or if he was just as bad as her.
I think he's just fed up.
That way.
I think they're about, because they were just. It's like, you know, she had the baby, and because she had the baby later in life, she wasn't really able to bond with it. And the baby's name is Lucas, by the way. And I guess, you know, they weren't able to bond with the baby. She wanted nothing to do with him, mainly because, you know, the baby cramped her style, and she couldn't have the lap of luxury that she was used to having, where she could come and go as she pleased. And he basically told her, well, you know, you never really bonded with that baby. And he basically convinced her that they needed to get rid of the baby, and he came up with the idea to basically kill the baby and frame Pepper for it.
And they didn't even kill
Pepper's
the baby.
Not all there.
They didn't. I mean, they did, but you know, it's not like he just straight smothered the baby or drowned the baby or something.
He drowned the baby and cut its ears off.
But was it alive when he cut its ears off? You know what I mean? Like just the whole process, like the whole thing. It's horrible. It's just a horrible. Unless Debbie said that Rita and Larry Gayheart are sociopathic abusers. Yes. Yes, Debbie, you are right. I agree with you 1,000%.
And they get away with it.
Very true.
I have to
say,
and
they get away with it. It's just it's astronomical, the fact that they actually get away with it.
From Salty's death to Pepper being admitted into this album is probably my favorite piece of acting in this entire series for all seasons. Naomi Grossman's performance in this is just so real, and it's so heartbreaking, and I can watch that story segment over and over and over and over, and there's always something new in it. It's powerful.
Yeah. And you know what, Debbie, I saw you.
We don't get much. We don't get much of them. No, I don't get much of them in the season, but it's impactful what we do get from both of them. They're powerful. They're both horrible people.
You know what, though? Actually, I think it's a good thing we didn't. Because, my God, can you imagine how we would have felt if we had more on these people? Or if they tried to do that thing where they give you that moral feeling and try to make them feel, you know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Empathy?
No, our word. Anyway. You start to feel for the character, and you feel like, you know, they've redone things, they've taken things in, they're sorry for what they did, they were remorseful, and
these people are not sorry for anything that they're doing. Trust me.
No,
the fact that they got away with it and just moved on with their lives is ridiculous. And then when you see this Pepper in the asylum in that actual season 2, and there's that girl, she killed her baby, stay away from her, she's a monster. It's like, wow,
And I love that they did give us some story. I mean, I know a lot of people weren't happy once we hit 4 because we started some connections.
Yeah.
But I liked that the connection they decided to give us was more backstory on Pepper and what happened.
Yeah.
Because you always felt for her, like, even though we were told up front she was a monster, we were led to believe that.
Yep.
Like, we were never told otherwise.
Again, they got away with it.
But we still fell in love with her, and we still cared about her and everything in season 2.
And
but then to hear her story is even more traumatic, and you're like, oh my God, poor Pepper.
But doesn't it seem that when she gets her voice, you finally see the real Pepper, and that she's just done? She's just not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's so that's powerful as well. She's just like, no, we stick to the kids, and we're moving on. So I wonder if Pepper
kind of like Pepper's happy ending, then, isn't it?
Kind of,
I mean, I know they say, later she died, but I mean, she got a voice.
Yeah, she got a voice.
She was finally able to speak for herself, literally and figuratively, Yeah. But anyway,
but that's basically Rita and Larry in a nutshell. It's just they were just evil people. They wanted their lives back after she gave birth to the baby, because she had the baby in her later life. I believe she was in her 50s when she had him, and she didn't want anything to do with him, so they wanted an out, and unfortunately Pepper was the one who suffered for that. And the baby, of course, because
she just was suffering the loss of her husband,
killing the baby, framing her for that. So
tragic. So tragic. All right, what are we doing? Stanley now?
Well, I'm sorry, I was reading the comments, you guys. Yes, Buffy, I remember Mare in St. Elmo's Fire. Oh my God, and it's such a complete difference to see her today. And you're like, oh my God, that's the same woman. But she was amazing in that movie as well. Like, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. Let's see. Debbie said Naomi Grossman's performance in that whole section, Michael, she was so good, and that's why I was so disappointed in her performance in Apocalypse as the Satanist. Such a flat, nothing character.
I would have never cast her in that. It was so miscast.
And it wasn't her fault either.
No, it was.
But you know what? The way I look at it is that we got her back. Either way, we still got Naomi Grossman back. Yes, she wasn't Pepper. She wasn't a likable, lovable, rememberable character like Pepper. But I think we want to remember Naomi Grossman that way. So if they do give her roles, she's going to have smaller, non-inclusive roles. You know what I mean?
There's so much wrong with Apocalypse with casting and script and everything. So there's a lot of injustice that was done to great performers. But we ain't there yet. Trust me, we'll get there. I'm repainting the soapbox as we get.
So that's all I have. That's all I have for now. I'll be coming back in the end when we get to.
So then we get to Maggie Esmeralda and Stanley.
All right, let's talk some Big Dick Stan here. So Stanley is Richard Spencer. That's his name. He was given a real name. He's a typical con artist. Says, in the carpetbagging days and beyond, when we got a lot of these salesmen or people trying to prey on other people for money. We still have it today, but it's more technology than it is the old-fashioned way, like Stanley used to do, door to door, person to person, and try and con people out of money. Anything for a buck. That's this guy. This guy in a nutshell. He will do anything. We'll find later, all the way up to murder and disloyalty to people and. Just to make sure that he makes a buck. And he is also a freak by nature, kind of, I guess. We never got to see it.
He's a Ron Jeremy of sorts.
The way they describe it is more than a Ron Jeremy. It's
supposed to be like freakishly. And I wish they would have done some clever way to showcase it rather than just tell us and we're supposed to believe it. Because I mean, like even a bulge in his pants, like we never saw like a huge bulge in his pants or anything. That would have been cool. That would have been something. Because even if it's not, at peak performance, if it's that big, it's gonna make a bulge in there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it was a fun little storyline. I'm sure Ryan had fun putting that in there, and Dennis, but yeah, the way he was with all the prostitute boys and his homosexuality and stuff, nobody was ever complaining. So I don't know if it was the monstrosity that was supposed to be, but
Buffy said they were
Right.
called grifters in those days.
were
Yeah.
called
yeah, they
grifters
call
back
a lot of different things, but grifters, carpetbaggers, there's a lot of stuff. But they were like the evil of door to door salesmen, basically what they were. And
Debbie
of course,
said, "How did they not show us that trouser snake?" And
right?
she's in
They
all
did look
caps.
nice.
I
So,
don't know, but they never did it. It was
No.
just slide.
so Big Dick Stan's story starts. It starts with this museum, okay? And let me go on here. I'm dusting off the soapbox. Let me go on this rant about this museum for a second. As much as I love this season, and as much as I love everything about the character development and study of this season, I find it really unnecessary to mix and match um, prophecy and delusion and reality are associated around this museum. It was really confusing. It never really quite makes any sense. There's never any rhyme or reason why in some scenes that it's complete dream or delusion somebody's having to another scene where it's actually the real victim in the jar, and foreshadowing or just dream. You guys know what I'm talking about, when they would like show at the beginning of a scene where it's just like, oh, there's the twins inside a case with underwater, and they Stanley got to them and they're in the museum. Oh, but no, there's been fine. But then we see something else and it's like, oh, that really happened. So it's like there was no rhyme or if there was a pattern to it, or if there was a rhyme or reason behind each one, it would have made sense. But I think it was just more arty than anything. It was trying to be arty for the sake of being arty, and it was confusing. And that was the only thing I didn't like about the season as a whole, was just like that was so unnecessary.
I have to put this up. Okay, I had to put it up because you guys have to read it.
Yeah, the hairdressing.
Leave it to BRT.
So we find him in this museum. They're pretending him and Maggie. Maggie Esmeralda.
Oh,
they
Lord.
are pretending to be scientists, and that they have found the fetus of Sasquatch, of Bigfoot. And the curator of the museum, who has other anomalies of freaks and deformities, finds out very quickly that this is not Bigfoot. And they basically call him, they want to arrest him, and they're like, no, we're out of here. And they got to come up with another scam. Well, this whole thing's got them thinking that they're going to find the freak show. And they're going to go, they find Elsa's freak show, and now they want to prey on them to get body parts back to this museum to make a lot of money, because they found out you can make a lot of money doing it. But how did him and Maggie meet? We'll talk about that when we get to Maggie. Right now, they've already met. And so they're at the freak show. Stanley puts on the new con that he is now a Hollywood agent, because he listens and he preys on people. So he knows that Elsa wants to be famous. So he's like, oh, I'm a Hollywood agent. I'll get her into the movies. And Esmeralda is going to be the soothsayer, the fortune teller, because every freak show, or every circus has got to have one. They didn't have one. She's going to be the fortune teller. And I'm sure most, if not all, those fortune tellers are con artists in a way, because all they do is listen. They listen to people's stories. They ask the right questions to get to the right answers before you can get to the right answer. People want to believe what they want to believe. And so Maggie was able to do this. So they are there, planted, and here's where our villain comes in. They're there planted into the freak show for one reason and one reason only: to kill people and bring back body parts, the freak body parts, to make them money. And that's the nuts and bolts of it. And he succeeds in many ways. And it's really, really astounding the level of success that he has throughout the season. First he gets who's the first one that goes? I want to do these in order. He gets, who is first? Ma Petite? No.
Salty?
Are you talking about the very first freak that he gets?
Yeah, it's Salty's head.
Salty, the first one, isn't it?
Salty died, huh? Who?
Yeah, Salty.
Yeah, Salty died, and he took
It's
his
Salty.
head.
Salty's the first one.
He took his head and sent his head back. So after all of this trauma that Pepper's going through, and of Salty's death and the love of her husband, his body's desecrated and just put in a museum like that. And we see Salty's head in the jar just sitting there. It's terrible. It's grotesque. Then he gets Jimmy's hands, because at one point Jimmy is put in jail for the death of Meat. I believe the officer. He's arrested. What was Jimmy arrested for again? The Tupperware thing, wasn't it? Jimmy's arrested and he's put in jail.
Yeah.
And Stanley comes in to bail him out of jail. And Stanley, through his artistry, is able to get him convinced that if he gives up his hands, he can get him out of jail. So whatever Stanley did to get him out of jail had nothing to do with his hands. He convinced Evan or Jimmy that he's going to take his hands, and then therefore both win. Jimmy gets out of jail, and Stanley gets the hands. He said it was going to be one hand. And then Jimmy wakes up from the operation or whatever, and both of his hands are gone. And so Jimmy's hands are in the museum, and Stanley has made money. During all this, he has blackmailed Dell. He's found out through his prostitution and stuff that Dell is a homosexual. So he's blackmailing Dell. So he blackmails Dell into getting Ma Petite, and then they get
because he tells him he has to get somebody, and that's when he's going to kill Jimmy for him. But then they get drunk together, and he finds out that Jimmy knows he's his dad, and he changes his mind. And that's when he knows he needs somebody else
to get. And then Ma Petite ends up being killed. He suffocates her, breaks her neck, suffocates her, right? And she ends up in a jar.
He basically squeezes the life out of her and snaps her neck.
Yeah. And so she's in a jar. And then word gets out. They find out Maggie spilled.
Just real quick. Don't you hate, it makes us hate Dell even more, I guess. The irony of the fact that it was Ma Petite, obviously everybody hated him for that. But it was the fact that he was the strong man, and the tiniest person there is the one the strong man chose to take.
Yeah. He couldn't even fend for himself with Eve.
Yeah.
He kicked his ass.
Yeah.
And it's like, so he did what he did, overpower the smallest thing.
What was he going to fucking do with Eve? Send her leg?
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to send
That's
the
a
whole
good question.
thing? I mean, what are you going to
answer that?
But yeah, that was Dell's obsession with just himself, the selfishness that Dell had, that he was willing to take, little Ma Petite's life just so that his story didn't get out there, just so that people did find out. He was gonna let Jimmy die. He knew Jimmy was his son. He was gonna let him die, and it's terrible. Oh yeah, Michael Chikos had a really hard time.
Yeah, it's true.
Talked about
he did. He had a hard time.
Yeah, that's why he's not reappeared on American Horror Story. So it's sad that he had death threats. He had people just really disgusted with him. He had a hard time with his own decisions that he made as an actor. It's these roles get to people. Like Evan had a really, really, really hard time with Colt, and that's why he ended up taking a break at 1984 into H. Yes. So what happens is Maggie spills the beans because Maggie has now fallen in love with Jimmy.
Jimmy.
She's becoming part of this family for all this. So she betrays Stanley, and all the freaks find out. She realizes that this is a family. They're going to go after this guy, and they turn him into meat. They turn him into the Chicken Man. And they basically cut off all of his limbs, and he's just like the little body with the feathers and stuff. And Wikipedia says that Dandy ends up killing him.
I believe Dandy shoots him when he shoots all the other freaks.
Yeah, he does end up shooting him.
I don't remember ever seeing him again. I thought that when the rig revealed,
because they ended up leaving him alive. They didn't kill him.
They didn't. Yeah, he was alive. He was part of the show.
The freaks left him alive. The freaks left him alive, but I think Dandy shot him when he shot everyone.
I'd have to look at the whole shooting again
because he was still in the cage when Dandy was in the round.
Yeah.
Great scene. So then Maggie on the flip side with Maggie is his partner. Maggie was.
They turned him into meat, is what they did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They made him the new meat.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So Maggie was she was trying to steal something, and she's getting chased down by the police, and Stanley finds it, and he cons the police into saying that it's her his child, and she was basically auditioning or studying for a role in the stage production of Oliver Twist, and she was learning how to steal that way, and this big old con, and he ended up taking her under his wing and caring for her, and she becomes like a Stanley Jr., an apprentice in conmanship, and she's following him around everywhere, and she ends up into the freak show with her. Her deal was she fell for somebody who was basically like a knight in shining armor, a hero. Because when they get captured by Twisty, and this whole mess going down, and Maggie sees that those other two innocents are in there, and Maggie's almost sawed in half, and at that time with Dandy, and just the horrors of the whole incident. And Jimmy saves everybody, and Jimmy becomes this big hero, and she feels Jimmy's heart and Jimmy's love for his friends and his loyalty and all that. And so Maggie completely ups and changes her whole life because of one man, her love for him, and her respect for his ideals and stuff. She gets it in the end. She'll be the volunteer for Chester and Marjorie's puppet show, where she will get sawed in half. So her destiny ends up being fate anyway, for poor little Maggie. But with Emma,
that is one of the most disgusting scenes
Gobble,
ever.
gobble, gobble. One of us. One of us.
One of us. With Esmeralda, I don't know. I would think that the Esmeralda character was kind of just flat, just kind of. Jimmy needed a love interest, and that was a way to get the love interest into the show. I thought Stanley could have been a character just without Maggie there. Stanley was the interesting part of this duo. Stanley was the real sinister, the real villain. I think Maggie was there by mistake. She couldn't pull through with it, killing anybody, and she was just taken under the wing by somebody who, was a bad man. Kind of a character. But Stanley we love. Gotta love Dennis O'Hare. Big Dick Stan.
No, Stanley we don't love. Dennis O'Hare we love.
Dennis O'Hare we love, yeah.
Big Dick Stan.
Which there's been juicy gossip he could be coming back.
I hope so.
There has been that.
I'm not putting anything out there that hasn't been said, but I'm just hoping, fingers crossed. We'll wait and see. That would be great.
Needs to come back.
They came to some kind of agreement and got over bad terms and let bygones be bygones. We'll be fine.
We hope.
Yep.
We'll see.
Yeah, this character in Freak Show was not developed very well because
maybe
kind of went flat.
Maybe Dennis agreed to come back to this anthology series, the stories. Maybe he'd agree to do one of those.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
It would be.
I'd love him to come back because there's just really something's just missing without him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's weird. It's like there were some staples that were like really just felt American Horror Story, just felt like the thing, and that was Francis Conroy, Dennis O'Hare. At the time, Jessica Lange, and Evans, not even Sarah in the beginning, but Evan, and Dennis's absence was the first absence that was for me that was like really felt. I mean, Jessica, we knew she was going. We knew that her time was up, so kind of like we were.
It wasn't a surprise.
Dennis's absence was felt. It was weird without him.
Yeah.
Well, and especially after his big performance in 5, and then just to get a small little role in 6, and then.
But even 6 was great.
Yeah.
No, it was, but it wasn't as memorable.
Oh no.
Like when you think back to 6 and you talk about it, you forget about his character until you get there, and then you're like, oh yeah,
there he is. Yeah, I know, because when he did come on the screen, I was so excited. I'm like, he's here.
I like the way. I like that 6 was so different that it gave us such a different American Horror Story. It helped us get into these later seasons that were so different. It was like Roanoke broke the mold, and we were able to move forward without the mold.
Broke the fourth wall, so to speak.
Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get into Vince, who is Penny's father.
Oh yes, Penny's father. He's another. Oh, he's one of those. He's extremely controlling of his daughter. Doesn't want his daughter to have any kind of life whatsoever.
Correct.
She's basically not allowed to leave the house.
She's dating a freak.
Well, yeah, she ends up once Elsa meets her in the hospital, she ends up taking her back to the freak show, and she ends up staying there for a while because apparently, they drugged her or whatever, and they had their way with her. But it turns out they filmed the whole thing, and it looks like she was actually having a good time. Well, she ended up falling in love with Paul, the SEAL man. So she had a relationship with him, and her father was extremely controlling. His name is Vince, by the way. And she wanted to get away from him, but he was just like, well, as long as you live under my roof, you'll go by my rules, and you're not allowed to do this, and you're not allowed to do that. And then the first time that she was basically confronted on this was when he was pounding on the door when Paul and Penny were in there, and Paul ended up hiding under the bed because her father actually heard them talking. And then the second time around, it was because she was getting ready to sneak out to go spend time with him, and so she spent a couple days away. And when she came back, the way he dealt with this,
came back to get her stuff.
She came back to get her stuff because she didn't want to live. She didn't want to live under his rules anymore. So his way of paying her back was the fact that when she came back to get the rest of her stuff, he basically had a friend of his that was a tattoo artist. Well, yeah, he knocks her out, and then she wakes up, and we find out that he had a tattoo artist basically tattoo her entire face to look like a lizard, and they also forked her tongue
and shaved her head.
They shaved her head. They forked her tongue, and that was his gift. So they basically turned her into a freak to get even, for some reason, to get even with her for falling in love with a freak, because God forbid she should be happy in any way, shape, or form. So she goes back to the freak show after this, and Paul finds out about it, and he feels guilty because he thought, he's the one who did this to her, and so on and so forth. And she tells the ladies about it. They end up breaking into the house, kidnapping Vince, taking them back to Desiree's trailer, and basically tar and feathering him
to death
and torturing him. And they basically were getting ready to cut off his junk. And unfortunately, Maggie was the one that interrupted them. And so instead of doing that, they basically just...
Well, because they were like, we don't want the cops here. They're going to come looking for him.
They basically just let him go. So
they were just going to kill him.
We don't...
drop him off in town so he can make an example of him so everyone can see him, something like that.
No, they didn't really actually say what they were going to do, but they...
No, I think Desiree said to do something like this, and they decided to do something else.
I think so.
Yeah, something like that. But, the fact that they tarred and feathered him, and, because imagine being tarred and feathered, because, the tar is hot and it's burning your skin. There's nothing that you can do about it. So that was torture enough, but they were about to finish the thing, and then Maggie was the one who messed the whole thing up. So they ended up not dismembering him and just letting him go.
Dismembering his member.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they talk about opium in the comments.
So that...
Yeah, they were saying that's what they're smoking this season. Yeah, it was opium. It was. That's when Penny was under the influence and she was really high, and then she didn't remember any of it and everything. They were smoking opium.
Yeah. But they smoke
it a few times throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They also filmed the whole thing because she thought she'd been taken there against her will, but it turns out she actually had a good time with it.
And then she accepts
they used that against her to get her to...
But I think she accepted it in the end. She said, you know what, I did have a good time.
Yeah.
In the end, she accepted it because she ended up falling in love with Paul.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about Paul. Oh. my heart.
Yeah.
I love the actor. I love that actor. He's amazing. His story is so amazing.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yep. All right, Mel, you're up.
So then we get to Chester and Marjorie.
Marjorie, my Marjorie.
Marjorie. So we see that well, first off, we know that Chester is a war veteran. He has a metal plate in his head. And I want to say he's just not right since then. Probably suffers PTSD. They don't specifically say it, but that's what they were referencing. I'm pretty sure. That's why they made him a war veteran. Yes, he did. He delivered amazingly.
He was
amazingly this season. And Jamie Brewer, just fantastic as Marjorie. So we have Neil Patrick Harris playing Chester, and it's his first season to AHS. And then we have Marjorie, who is a ventriloquist dummy of his, but we also see her in human form. And when we do, she's played by Jamie Brewer, the magnificent, wonderful Jamie Brewer. God, that woman can do no wrong either. She's just amazing.
I would love for her to come back too.
She went from sweet, innocent to then suddenly being like, fuck you, bitch, to suddenly being like, kill them all, like,
yeah,
like it's great. Like, I love it. But yeah, so we start with Chester with knowing that background information. And then we see that him and his wife are deciding to let another woman into their bedroom. The wife wants to have a threesome with the neighbor. He doesn't feel comfortable with it, so he wants to sit back and watch rather than join. And he begins to hallucinate and hear voices. And we see that he's holding his ventriloquist puppet on his lap while he's sitting in the corner watching them do their thing on the bed. Like get it on. And the doll's just talking to him, and she puts things in his head that people don't believe in you, people don't love you, they're gonna know what you did. She's a very manipulative, conniving type of character, Marjorie is.
Mm-hmm.
And she's constantly in his head in a negative way. It's never in a positive light, although it's very much like an abusive relationship. If you look at Chester and Marjorie, he is very much drawn to it. And even though he sees what she does to him because he calls her out on it, he still keeps going back. He still needs her for that comfort. He needs her to make him feel better, to make him feel like he's right in the world.
Right. So
we see that Chester ends up working. Elsa gives him a job working, and he's doing the finances, and then he gets a side act with Marjorie.
And yes, he was originally introduced in Glee. That was his first introduction into the
Ryan Murphy universe. Yeah. And then, there's another little tidbit, but I'll let Mike get into that later. But where was I? See, you can't stop me. Okay, so anyway, he sees the wife and everything. He's going crazy. Then Elsa gives him the job. Now what we find out is that he flipped out and killed his wife and her partner, Alice, Lucy and Alice. His wife was Lucy. Alice was the neighbor, the friend, the partner that she was with. He flips out because Marjorie tells him to, and tells him, puts stuff in his head, and he kills both of them and leaves town. This is why he's trying to get the job with Elsa. Then long story short, he, meets the twins, falls in love with the twins. They have sex 2 different times. So don't you damn well tell me now, when I forgot about that very well could be Chester Krebs' crazy ass baby inside a Betting Dot. Timing fit. She slept with Jimmy, she slept with Chester, and they slept with Dandy. We need Maury on this one for that baby before that baby's born.
No. When you think about it.
Did they sleep with Talise too?
What?
Huh?
Talise?
No, they did. They just
didn't
made
go
out
through
with
it.
him.
Yeah. She didn't have sex for the first time until later because they wanted to have sex with Jimmy and Jimmy wouldn't do it. But
Could be Chester's.
well, actually, wasn't that one more person they slept with then?
See,
No,
don't know why
I think
told you.
Chester was the first.
I don't know. Bet and Dot got a taste of some sexual freedom and started hoeing around, man. They were like, get it on with everybody. But anyway, so then we have Marjorie getting very jealous of the relationship that he's having with Bet and Dot. And then Dandy's creeping around. Dandy gets very jealous of the relationship that he's having with Bet and Dot because they're all kind of falling for each other. And I should say Bet and Dot are willing to settle for him. They're still, kind of hung up on Jimmy.
Yeah. Or I should
but-
say Dot is mainly.
Yeah.
Dot is
no Bet. Bet's hung up on Jimmy. Dot just wants to be a star.
Yeah.
And then we have so Dandy takes Marjorie and we see Marjorie then in the middle of the tent. This is when we really get to see Marjorie as a real life person. This is when we get to see the Jamie Brewer as Marjorie, like full on just sitting there, one flash it's the doll, one it's not anymore. And this is when we really realize Chester's a crazy motherfucker. I mean, it's not the only moment you realize, but this one, it really is like they're slapping us in the face with it. They're saying, okay, look at this. This is not real. This is what he sees, though. This is what he's hearing. And he is flipping out. This guy's nuts. Okay. And then so Marjorie tells him he has to kill the twins and saw them in half because they're working with him on his magical act to practice it. And so he eventually, goes to
the music's distracting.
What?
The music is distracting, I guess.
Wait, what?
Debbie's asking about it.
Oh. That should be better.
Oh, does somebody have music on in the background? Yeah. That wasn't, I don't know, Mel, do you still have music on in the background?
It's
Okay.
circus. It's creepy circus music.
That's what that is.
I've had it on the whole time. It's just an hour and 3-minute long playlist. But anyway, so the twins see that Chester's kind of starting to lose it because he's already been talking to his doll while they're, making out and starting to have sex, and the doll has to watch them because it makes him feel good. It comforts him. And so they say, you know what? We decide we don't want to do this anymore. We're not gonna be in your act. We don't want you to saw us in half, pretend saw us in half. So that's where we get Maggie step up to the plate. And Maggie decides that she'll do it for Chester. Now Chester's in a psychotic state in this moment. He is hearing Marjorie in his head. And he's looking at the box and he sees his wife's lover in the box. And then he sees Marjorie in the box. And this just drives him into a rage. And he handcuffs her feet so that she can't pull her feet in. Takes the big ass saw out. Saws her in half for real while he's still in a delusional state. He's seeing the act. And everybody, the freaks, are sitting around watching this. Because he's up on the stage right now, and this is supposed to be practice, rehearsal, and stuff. And he opens the box up, and out fall all of her intestines and her guts and everything. And that's when he snaps out of his delusional state. And he realizes what he did. He runs to his tent to go get Marjorie. Stabs the shit out of Marjorie. Stabs the shit out of her. Tells him, listen here, you're horrible. I can't live with you. I love those girls, all this stuff. And then, that's pretty much where we see Chester until we see Chester then walk into the police station.
With Marjorie.
Crying, carrying his doll, wrapped up. It's wrapped up, mind you, because he has killed her. He has killed the demon inside his head, which good for him. But too little, too late. And he tells the police he's there to report a murder. And they're like, wait, what? They're like, who was murdered, and he tells them
Wait.
Marjorie, and
What the
they
fuck?
say, you know, who did it? And he says, I did it, and they think that he's carrying a child or something.
Yeah.
Stop.
He opens, he lifts up the blanket or whatever, and they see it's a doll, and they're like, "Get your crazy motherfucking ass out of here!" There you go. What the fuck? And then get your crazy ass on. And then I don't think we don't see what happens to Chester after that. I don't know where he goes, what he does.
Little loony bin.
They kind of
maybe not.
They left it open ended.
He ends up in the asylum later, right?
Exactly, right?
But that is Chester and Marjorie's story, unless you guys can think of something I forgot about their story specifically.
No,
I think you covered.
Well, he does magic. That's how he wanted to start. He was
Anything you want to add?
He wants to be a magician and a ventriloquist.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Mike, do you have something you want to add?
Oh, just for Debbie. This is to be a treat for Debbie. I don't know if she knew before. I know Neil. I actually grew up with Neil. And
didn't you guys go to school together?
Yes. Well, we went to two opposite schools across town from each other. And we were both in theater. We're both the same age, same year. And it's through a guy that my best friend Julie was like in love with from his high school, from his theater. His name is Matt. Matt and Julie were like had this flirting relationship every time we went to theater conference and everything. And Neil was good friends with Matt. And so our school and their school were like competitive rival schools in theater conferences, but we were really supportive, competitive. And so we would all hang out, 4 or 5 times a year, during theater conferences and stuff. We would hang out. And so the Neil I know is Doogie, Doogie Howser, Claire Hart.
I love me some Doogie Howser.
That's the Neil I know. How Neil got his start was actually, I always say, Neil has my career, and I'll always hate him for it. No, just kidding. But no, seriously, we went to, it was during our junior year. We went to a theater conference in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and it was a bunch of workshops that you can take at this conference. And one of the workshops was a playwriting workshop put on by Mark Menoff, who did Children of a Lesser God. He was actually writing and casting for Clara's part at the time. And Neil went to that. Neil was playing Good Boy. And
I love that.
To that workshop, and that's exactly what Mark was looking for. Mark Menoff was looking for a kid just like him. Whereas we all cut the workshop and went smoked dope under a tree where Neil was doing the right thing. So I said, Neil has a career.
So wait, who stole your career, Neil or the pot?
Neil stole your career.
I went with. The last time I saw Neil on stage was our senior year. He did a show, Line in Winter. His role in that. I was at Neil's graduation because they graduated right before I graduated. So I saw Neil graduate. I don't think they stayed to see us graduate. Last time I saw him was a couple of years ago at Comic-Con. He was actually at Comic-Con for promoting something or other, and I saw him and we chatted for a bit. It's been 20, 30 years since high school. So
that's cool.
I think he's done amazing work with his career. He's not lost who he was, and he's just this macho, beautiful man that he's become. That's not Neil that I know. I know Doogie. That's my memories of him is Doogie. So
the awkward adolescent.
Yeah, and he's
cracking voice and all.
Yeah, we were the same age. So that's fun. It's always fun to talk about Neil because every season, MPAs, Neil Patrick Harris, we've only ever known him as Neil. He never went by the Patrick thing until.
That's just a Hollywood thing. That's because Neil is a very common name, and you want to stand out. You want something to stand out.
Right.
Great guy. Everything
he does for sure.
Everything that you see of him, and his sincerity and generosity and everything. That's how we remember him. He's done right by himself. He comes from money. They come from a lot of opportunity. His parents are agents in the film business. They have a lot of pull in Hollywood. So he's fortunate, and he's done right by himself, being fortunate that he is. No animosity towards him whatsoever. It's pretty neat.
Oh, hey, you guys, Katie just popped in. Hey, Katie. We're almost done. You'll have to go back and watch when we get done. We're almost done. We're about wrapping up now, so.
Oh, and also just so we were talking about in
Debbie said
pre-show.
there was probably already a Neil Harris with the SAG card. And yeah, you're totally right. That's probably
Yeah, I
exactly
believe
what it was.
so.
Also with American Horror Story, you know, the part Patrick and what's his face, Zach Quinto's character, Patrick and what were they called? Patrick and somebody.
Chad and Patrick.
Chad Patrick.
Chad
That was
and Patrick.
that was written for Neil and his husband. Ryan wrote that for Neil and his husband, and they couldn't do it. Well, number one, his husband didn't want to do a gay together role with Neil on there. He wanted something different, something outside of their normal relationship. And Neil was contracted at the time, so they probably every year they were trying to get Neil and his husband on. They finally got him on for Freak Show, but those roles were written for them.
B says that NPH stole his heart in Harold and Kumar. I love that role. It's just so ridiculous and out there.
Yeah,
like I love seeing him play that role. I was like, oh my god, here he is, like high with the hookers, riding his shroom, eating shrooms, riding unicorns and shit. I'm like, all right.
I can honestly say that there is not a role that he has ever done that I have not liked.
Yep. The best stuff that I like him in, that I like watching him in, that really, really does, I'm just impressed and I just bow down to him, is when he hosts the Tony Awards. When he does hosting duties and he's there live on stage, it's like, yes, sir. Yes, you got it.
We surrender.
Absolutely.
We are not worthy.
We surrender to the power of NPH.
Well, guys, that has been our secondary villain show. We we've covered everyone.
Every woman.
Yeah, we have.
Every
everyone, every person.
Oh, I covered every woman.
No, I said everyone. That's how they say it.
All right, wait. Wand of the day.
No. Wand for the freak show.
Background to wand of the day.
What is your wand of the day, Michael?
I'm working on it. Okay, here we go. This is. Oh, we're doing villains, so we'll stay on the villain check. We should do this in action figure cam now that's set up. This is Fenrir Greyback. Fenrir Greyback is the werewolf in Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows. He's the one that initially bit Lupin. Evil, just evil fucker. It's his one. Doing villains?
Very nice.
Yeah.
Looks easy to grip.
Huh?
Looks easy to grip.
Oh, it's light. For some, I
looks
forget
easy
how
to grip.
I took it off the wall and I almost threw it over my head because it's so light. Because they all have a metal core inside of them. This one has one, but it feels like it's only a piece of a metal core. It's light. It's like a pencil.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super comfortable. I like the really thin ones like this.
That's not what she said.
No, that's not what you said either. That's not what I said.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for being here for our show for AHS Freak Show, Character Study and Connections. As we discuss secondary villains, we have told you about Maggie, Stanley, Larry, Rita,
Vince,
Chester,
Melissa,
Marjorie, and Vince.
Yes.
Big Dick Stan. Hashtag it. Let's get it rolling.
And tomorrow will be
tomorrow will be main villains. We will be doing main villains tomorrow for you guys. We just had to break them up because there's quite a few of them if you really look into it. So
yeah, we've got more Drake and we've got Twisty there. It's kind of not fair. We'll talk about it, but we're covering Dandy. That's what we're covering tomorrow.
You're right.
It's all about Dandy. There you go. Hashtag Big Dick Stan.
Who started that? B?
No, Debbie.
Debbie. I knew it was one of the two. I knew it had to be.
Hashtags again.
Oh. Well, thank you guys. We look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Tell us who your favorite secondary villain was and is, and go ahead and write it down in the comments below this video. Let us know. All of our links are in the description below this video. And that's it. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll see you when we see you. Bye, guys.
All right. Good night, guys.